If you had to take one car to do everything for the next year, airport runs, a 500-mile road trip, and then show up to a track day without being a rolling joke, what would you pick? Because 2026 is basically the peak of the super SUV era. These things are 2.5 tons on street tires with power figures that used to belong to halo cars. And the wild part is not just straight-line speed anymore. A few of these are genuinely engineered to take heat, take laps, and take abuse without immediately turning into a brake-smelling limp-mode family shuttle. So here are my top 10 luxury sports SUVs in the world for 2026, focused on the ones that actually bring performance hardware, not just a fancy badge and a launch control party trick. And as we go, tell me in the comments, if you had to own just one of these for 3 years, would you rather have the best-sounding one or the fastest lap time one? Number 10. BMW X5 M Competition. This is the one that doesn't need the coupe roof line to look angry. The X5M has always been the more "I came here to work" choice compared to the X6M's fashion statement, and in 2026 it still plays that role, big, square-shouldered, and weirdly serious. Under the hood, you're looking at BMW's 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 with mild hybrid assistance in the latest spec, putting down roughly the mid-600 horsepower neighborhood, depending on market and year. The headline number isn't the whole story, though. What makes the X5M matter is how it delivers speed. It does that classic M thing where the drivetrain feels like it's always in the right gear, always ready, and it does not drive like it's apologizing for its weight. On the hardware side, you've got the stuff you actually care about if you wrench or do track days: big cooling capacity, real brake options, and suspension tuning that can go from daily to "I'm going to embarrass a hot hatch on an on-ramp" with a mode change. Interior is modern BMW, big screens, heavy bolstering, and enough leather and stitching to remind you it's still in the luxury tax bracket. Price is usually sitting around the low to mid 100K range before you start clicking the options that turn "nice build" into "why is this number climbing?" It's not the most exotic SUV on this list, but if you want a luxury missile you can actually live with, and you want a platform that has a real tuning ecosystem, this is the sensible kind of insane. Number 9. Mercedes-AMG GLE 63 S Coupe. AMG's superpower is always the way they make torque feel rude. The GLE 63 S Coupe is the SUV that shows up looking like a designer sneaker and then proceeds to pull like a freight train. AMG's all-wheel drive system is a big part of why these work. It is not just safe in the rain. It is put power down early, exit hard, and let the rear rotate if you asked nicely. The problem is the coupe body sacrifices some rear practicality and rear visibility, and not everybody wants their performance SUV to also be a style argument. Inside, it's peak modern Mercedes, big ambient lighting, big glossy screens, and a cabin that feels expensive even before you option the seats that can massage you while the car is threatening physics. It's pricey, and it gets pricier fast, but if you want a luxury SUV that still feels like it has a little bit of that old AMG menace, this is one of the last mainstream places you can still get it. Number 8. Maserati Grecale Trofeo. The Grecale Trofeo is for someone who wants to be different on purpose. It's not the obvious choice, and that's exactly the point. Maserati has been using wind names forever. Ghibli, Bora, Levante, and Grecale is another one. But the part that matters is the engine story. The Trofeo gets the Nettuno-derived V6 tech, and even if it's not literally the same package as the MC20, it carries that Italian performance personality in the way it revs and the way it sounds. Power is roughly in that 500-plus horsepower territory, with a 0 to 100 km/h time in the high 3s to low 4s depending on conditions and spec. The Grecale also feels physically smaller than the big body monsters on this list, which matters when roads get tight and you actually want to place the car, not just point it. Now, the honest part, resale and dealer experience can vary a lot by region, and long-term ownership is a question some buyers take seriously. But as a luxury sports SUV with personality, real personality, the Trofeo earns its spot. Number 7. Audi RS Q8 Performance. If you want an SUV that feels like it was engineered by people who think in lap times, the Audi RS Q8 Performance is Audi doing the no-excuses version of a luxury bruiser. And the Nürburgring connection is not just marketing. Audi has used the RS Q8 to chase serious SUV lap times, and when you watch one moving fast, the car looks like it's shrinking around the driver. This is the familiar 4-liter twin-turbo V8 formula done the Audi Sport way. Strong power, huge torque, and a chassis that feels surprisingly composed for something with this ride height. The performance variant bumps the intensity, more output, sharper calibration, and typically more aggressive standard equipment. Inside is Audi's digital, clean, and tech-heavy layout. Some people prefer it to BMW and Mercedes because it's less nightclub lighting, more high-end instrument panel. It's expensive, and options can get silly, but the RS Q8 is one of the best answers to a simple question: can a luxury SUV feel legitimately fast without feeling sloppy? In this case, yes. Number 6. Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. This is the one you buy if you care about repeatability. Not one hero run, not one launch control flex. Repeatable fast. Porsche took the Cayenne, and with the Turbo GT, they basically said, we know exactly what people are going to do with this, so let's engineer for that. You get a 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 with a calibration that's aggressive in the right places, plus the chassis setup that Porsche keeps refining year after year. Suspension tuning, anti-roll control, real aero pieces, big brakes, and the kind of stability that makes you trust the car earlier than you probably should. The Nürburgring lap time story around the Turbo GT is part of why it's a legend already. But the more impressive thing is how it drives on normal roads. It doesn't feel like a track special that hates you the other 6 days of the week. It feels like a performance car that happens to have cargo space. It's not cheap. You're firmly in the "this could have been a 911" money. But if your brain is wired for chassis feel and braking confidence, the Turbo GT is basically the default answer. Number 5. Range Rover Sport SV. This is the luxury hotel valet car that can also show up and do violence to a back road. Range Rover has always had that commanding thing, but the SV is where they lean into real performance hardware. The modern SV uses a 4.4-liter twin-turbo BMW-sourced V8 with mild hybrid tech, and it brings the kind of low-end torque that makes the car feel lighter than it is. The interesting part here is how Range Rover approaches performance. It is not trying to be a Cayenne Turbo GT, it's trying to keep the Range Rover identity, quiet cabin, high-end materials, presence, and then add speed without it feeling like you're riding in something stripped out. So you'll see wild options like carbon pieces, high-end seat systems, big brakes, and more aggressive calibration. You also still get that upright seating position and that luxury vibe that some buyers will pick over a more sports car interior. If you want the blend of real power with real luxury, and you like the idea that the same badge also has off-road heritage in its bloodline, the Sport SV is a strong 2026 flex. Number 4. Bentley Bentayga Speed. Bentley making an SUV used to sound like a punchline. Now, the Bentayga Speed is basically the proof that this category grew up. The big 2026 story is the shift away from the old W12 era into a 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 setup in the current generation of speed models, depending on market and final spec. And yes, purists will argue about cylinder count forever, but the Speed still does what it's supposed to do: move a rolling luxury suite at a rate that feels unreasonable. The Bentayga's performance is not just the 0 to 60, it's the way it stays composed while doing it, and the way the cabin stays calm while the outside world starts blurring. It feels expensive in the way that's hard to spec sheet. The materials are real, the controls feel weighted, and the whole thing has that built for people who keep cars for a long time vibe. It's also one of the few cars here where you can have this level of performance and still arrive looking like you came from an old money universe. Number 3. Aston Martin DBX 707. The DBX 707 is what happens when a brand known for beautiful grand touring decides it's not going to get bullied in the SUV world. And the number is the headline: 707 metric horsepower. The 4-liter twin-turbo V8 is brutally strong, and the chassis tuning is far more aggressive than most people expect the first time they drive one. Aston Martin also scored a huge credibility win by putting the DBX into the F1 medical car role. That doesn't magically make it a race car, but it does show that the brand is comfortable presenting this SUV as a real performance tool, not just a lifestyle product. Inside, you get that Aston vibe, leather, stitching, a cockpit feel, and a sense that you're in something special. The infotainment has improved over time, and depending on model year and update package, it's a much better place to live than early cars. It's expensive, it's loud when you want it to be, and it has the kind of road presence that make other fast SUVs look a little too normal. Number 2. Ferrari Purosangue. Ferrari spent years saying they don't build SUVs. Then they built this, and they'll remind you it's not an SUV in the way they proportioned it and engineered it. But whatever label you want to use, the heart of the Purosangue is the reason it's here. A naturally aspirated 6.5-liter V12. No turbos, no fake sound, no it's fast because electric motor, just displacement, revs, and a soundtrack that you cannot replicate with software. It's also a packaging flex. 4 doors, 4 seats, real usability, and it still looks like a Ferrari because the stance is low and the proportions are dramatic. Ferrari did clever things like the rear door setup and the body surfacing to keep it from looking like a tall blob. Performance is obviously supercar-level quick, but the bigger story is the driving feel. Ferrari tends to chase response, steering response, throttle response, chassis response, and people who've driven it usually come away talking about that, not just the stopwatch. Price is well north of what most people would call rational, and options can go nuclear. But if you're the type who cares about engines as mechanical objects, the Purosangue is one of the most important performance SUVs ever made. Number 1. Lamborghini Urus SE. If you want the most complete super SUV package in 2026, this is the one that checks the most boxes. The Urus was already the loud, aggressive, unapologetic entry in this class. The SE takes it further by going plug-in hybrid, meaning you get that electric torque fill, more total system output, and a different kind of speed off the line and out of corners. In the real world, the hybrid setup is not just about emissions compliance. It changes the character. You get sharper response at low speeds, more punch in transient moments, and depending on calibration, it can make the car feel like it's always on boost even before the turbos are fully awake. The Urus also has one of the best drama per mile ratios on the planet. The seating position is SUV, the stance is wide, the cabin feels like a fighter jet designed by someone who loves hexagons, and the exhaust note, when it's not being socially polite, still has that Lamborghini edge. It's expensive, and it's an options minefield, but for 2026, as the do-it-all luxury performance SUV that still feels like it's from a supercar brand, the Urus SE sits at number 1. Now, I want to hear from you. If you had to choose, would you take the V12 Ferrari for the sound and the uniqueness, or the Urus SE for the all-weather hybrid-assisted punch? Drop your pick in the comments and tell me what you're driving right now, stock, lightly modified, or fully built. If you want more videos like this with real track numbers, brake and tire talk, and under-the-hood engineering details, subscribe because the next one I'm working on is a head-to-head breakdown that a lot of people are going to argue about.